So how would you respond if somebody asked you to sum up Vampire Survivors in about 10 seconds? As for me, I would probably just show them a clip that looks something like this. Alright, well if that didn't make you curious to check out this game, what is up everybody? Thanks for checking out Shin88 Gaming. Today we are going to be playing one of my favorite games from the last couple of years. This is Vampire Survivors, as you can clearly see there. Now, as you saw from the intro, this game tends to get pretty insane relatively fast, but we're going to start from the beginning. I'm going to explain to you what it's all about and talk a little bit about the game itself, the developer, and whatnot. What you need to know is that when you first turn on the game, it looks like a 99-cent mobile game. And to an extent, it sort of is like that. However, this game is just so immensely satisfying to play that I can wholeheartedly recommend it. And the price is right as well, which we will get to. So we're going to go ahead and do a rapid game, which is a 15-minute game. By default, you're going to go through 30 minutes, but you can actually speed it up with an option, which is going to make it a little bit better for us here. So as you probably saw, there are many characters to choose from. I don't even have all of them unlocked yet. They all have slightly different abilities and play a little bit different, but essentially this is the game right here. It totally looks like either a Game Maker game that I would have made in high school or, you know, some like crappy mobile game. However, it does not play like one of those games. It is incredibly simple, can be played with a controller, with just a mouse, with a keyboard, with a combination of all these things. The majority of characters and the majority of weapons in this game fire automatically, which means the only thing that you're controlling for the most part is the movement. So as I'm controlling this character, I'm basically just walking, and that's it. The basic goal of the game is to survive through the time limit. In this case, it's going to be 15 minutes. It's going to say 30, but you notice that we're getting 2 counts for every second, essentially. As you kill enemies, they drop these gems, which you can pick up for experience. Every time you get a certain amount of experience, you gain a level. And every time you gain a level, you can choose an additional power-up. Now, you can choose a completely new power-up, or you can choose to upgrade a power-up that you have. And there are quite a few different items to gather in this game. And as such, there are quite a few different ways to build your character. You can see there in the top left corner, those are the items I'm carrying. You can't carry an infinite number of items, so once you've gathered a certain amount, you can't have any more, and you can only upgrade what you have, which means that there's actually quite a bit of replay value just in sort of building your character, although you'll most likely find that you prefer certain characters and certain power-ups, and some are certainly better than others. So I mentioned each character plays a little bit differently, has different bonuses. The bonus that this guy gets is that he gets an extra projectile for every weapon type that he picks up, which is incredibly good. So if you got a weapon that normally fires one time, it's actually going to fire twice each time. And as you upgrade these weapons, they'll gain additional projectiles anyway. So like the knife here, which just fires in a straight line essentially, you will get many more knives as you go through. But now I have an additional +1 knife, regardless of that. We are not going to get too far into looking at all the characters and stuff, but I will do one more partial round after we do this one, and basically just pick all different power-ups so you can get an idea. The levels are quite a bit more varied than this as well. This one's just kind of wide open, but there's some that put you in tight quarters. The enemies are different in every level, and that sort of thing. We're also not really going to get into it here so much, but there are plenty of secrets to be found in the levels, from unlocking characters to secret areas. You can find power-ups on the ground and all that sort of stuff. So there's really quite a bit to this game. I would say this game actually has a lot of content. And on that note, the game is still being updated, and in fact gets an update basically once a week. I was trying to keep up with all the updates and getting the achievements for a while, just for the heck of it, and I quickly gave up because as I'm looking back at the time of recording, the game was updated on August 4th, July 21st, July 12th for just bug fixes, July 7th, June 23rd, June 9th, etc. And each of those updates, minus the one that was just the small bug fixes, added new characters, new maps, new achievements, that sort of thing. So there's a lot here. And if you like what you see here, it's probably well worth your time. On that note, I mentioned that this looks like a cheap mobile game. Well, it's in early access currently, but it is actually a cheap game. $3 American for this game, for something that I've put probably 30-ish hours into at this point. I'd say that's a pretty good value proposition there. I think the price is going to go up once it's out of early access, not that I know when that is going to be. I think initially the dev said about a year of development, and then it would be released. Not sure if there are going to be more updates after that, but it looks like the early access release date was in December, so we can at least expect updates probably through December of this year, which is not too bad. Not too bad at all. So what about the developer? Well, it was somebody that I had not ever heard of. Poncle? Poncle? I'm pretty sure it's Poncle. Poncle. Looked up the dev on the Steam store, and this is the only game that has made it to Steam. However, on poncle.net, you can see that it's actually a single person named Luca, and this person, not sure if it's a guy or a gal, has actually made quite a few games. However, most of them, from just looking at the site, do actually look like sort of cheap mobile games. But then again, I guess if we were to judge this game by its aesthetic, we would think that as well. I don't know how long this dev has been around, although on the website it says game and web developer with 7 years of professional experience and a few more as an indie. So, guess this person's been around for a while. I certainly would be interested in seeing some of the other games, I guess, although I think this is going to be the best one, just going by the fact that this one blew up so much. It has been getting, well, at least it's been making the rounds on YouTube some, I know, and rightly so. So as we're sort of progressing through the game here, you'll notice that the enemies tend to ramp up as you get on in time. So as your powers are increasing, you're getting more stuff, you're getting upgraded weapons, the enemies will start to come in larger numbers and get more health. However, what you'll find is that this is not a particularly difficult game. In fact, we'll take a look at the upgrade system, because there is one. And once you have a few of those updates, or upgrades rather, under your belt, you'll probably be completing every run, which is not necessarily a bad thing. By the way, here's an evolved weapon, which we will talk about briefly in a moment. But what I'm getting at is that, yeah, this game is not really designed to be like a crazy challenge. This is certainly not a game that you're going to have a huge amount of trouble with. Even if you start taking hits, I mean, if you just plan your, you know, your next move a little bit, you'll probably be okay. And then when you really start getting tons of crazy weapons, you'll really have no trouble for a good portion of the run. But I don't think that's really the point of the game. Like, it sounds like it's kind of cheap entertainment, but I think the point of this game is just to give you this constant dopamine rush and, like, overwhelm you with explosions and stuff on the screen. In fact, one of the quotes on the Steam page, I believe, or maybe it was in the intro or something, I can't remember where I saw it exactly, was, "Be the bullet hell." And that is essentially what you're doing. If you imagine playing as the Toho boss, that's sort of what you're doing here. And it's super satisfying. Like I said, I've put probably 30-something hours into this game so far, and although I don't play it every day, it's nice to pop in for, you know, 15 minutes at a time or whatever, and give it a go. So you'll notice that I am collecting these gold coins as I continue to play, and that is because that is what you use to get permanent upgrades as you go through. And we can get into all this, you know, these randomizo things and such. This is all stuff that's been added in updates, sort of like modifiers or mutations, I guess you could call them. But they're usually a buff. Sometimes they're a buff that also comes with a downside. It's just more stuff that you can unlock and more stuff that you can then use in actual levels. I gotta say, I'm totally in love with this game. It's just so satisfying. And it kind of, like I said, it's kind of a cheap dopamine rush, but it tends to be pretty relaxing. As I said, it's not that difficult of a game. You can throw it on and play it in, 15 or 30-minute sessions. Or I guess if you wanted to, you could sit here and play it for an hour or so. But it's just really, really relaxing and satisfying to play. Now, we can get back to talking about some of the updates that the game has gotten. The developer seems to be quite receptive to feedback, and little things that were minor annoyances have all pretty much gotten fixed or patched out. So that gives me a lot of hope for the game going forward, that it's just going to continue to get better. In fact, I don't think, and I could be wrong, I haven't, followed super closely the community of this game or anything, but I don't think there have been any updates that broke something that everyone was really upset about, and if there were, I think the changes probably got reversed. The game currently sits at overwhelmingly positive on Steam, with over 110,000 reviews, which is pretty cool for them. I didn't really see any negative reviews as I was scrolling through. Again, if something like this has minor flaws, it's still pretty hard to fault it when it's $3, right? Like, that's the price of a drink when you go out to lunch at fast food, maybe? Maybe even cheaper than a drink with our nice inflation that we have at the time of recording. Well, this game price has not been affected by inflation, so we're good there. Yeah, in fact, as I'm scrolling, I don't see any negative reviews. I would be curious to see what people were saying about it. Let's find out. Conflicting feelings. This guy just says there was a bug. Cloud saves don't work. Yeah, so it seems like all the negative reviews are due to a couple bugs that may have been patched out by now. This guy says the game is really shallow. Yes, that is 100% true. But personally, I don't mind it. Well, anyways, we're going to continue through our little run here. Let's talk about some of the power-ups that you can get. Oh, we're getting close to that thing from the intro here, aren't we? So one of the things that we have right now that's going on is Gold Fever, which means every time you pick up a money bag, you'll start dropping a lot of extra gold from enemies. You can renew it by picking up more money bags, which are random drops. And we'll talk about the evolved weapons now, because I never realized I never got back to that. So one of the reasons that you would pick up specific items is not just because you like, say, the way that item works. It's because items actually synergize with each other to evolve, quote-unquote. So what that means is if you have two specific items, one of them can evolve to become a stronger version. So with the knife, in this case, which I evolved first, the sort of bonus to it when you evolve it is that it fires with no delay. So you notice it's just a constant stream. Same thing with the Bible power-up that circles around you. The evolved form of that makes it so that it just constantly circles and doesn't have any cooldown. You would imagine that something like that is quite useful. And oh, here we go. Here's another one. The evolved lightning ring, where lightning strikes twice. Yes. So all of the evolved forms of the weapons are extremely powerful, and your goal generally is sort of to pick out the ones that you want and try and build your character around that. Although you can certainly just pick up random stuff and still have a good time. There is actually a wiki for the game that used to be more important than it is now, because the game didn't used to tell you what the criteria for evolving weapons was, but now it does. So that's not as much of a necessity. However, the wiki does lay out where a lot of the secrets are to be found in the levels, how you unlock certain characters and whatnot. Like I said, I'm several updates behind on this game, so I don't have all of the items, all the characters, or anything, not even close. But there is plenty to be had there. Again, this is basically what you're going to be doing for the entire game, so don't expect to see like, some deep story or some exploration element or something. What you see here is pretty much what you're getting, but I think what you're seeing here is enough for me, especially again at $3. That's just nice. I remember talking with somebody about how this game was legitimately better than Elden Ring, and fight me. I don't care. Fight me. But I honestly think that I have had more fun with this game than with Elden Ring. And we'll talk about Elden Ring some other time. Well, if you've been on the channel for a while, I'm a huge Souls player. But that's for another day. So you may be wondering what actually happens when you run out of time. Well, the goal, again, is to try and make it to the end. However, you're not going to be surviving past the end, at least not without some very specific sort of exploits and techniques, because the Grim Reaper basically shows up and kills you. Now, there is a way, I guess, to kill the Grim Reaper, but it sort of uses exploits. The dev's aware of it and hasn't necessarily patched it out, but it's not really intended. However, I don't know how to do it, so you'll have to watch some YouTube tutorials for that one, I guess. I think it involves, like, staying at a certain level, playing with a certain character, and on a certain level, perhaps. I'm not really sure. But there's a new challenge for you, if you're up to it, I suppose. Now, you'll notice we have the evolved version of the Fire Wand, which fires larger projectiles and pierces through enemies. That's going to be a big one for a lot of weapons, is piercing through enemies, because as you can see, now that we've hit the 23-minute mark, or that's really more like the 11.5-minute mark, I guess, enemies are going to start coming a lot more frequently. However, enemies appearing more frequently means that you are going to be getting a lot more experience, so it's sort of a benefit rather than a handicap, especially if you've built out your character properly. Oh, here we go. I think this is the part from the intro, wasn't it? Look at this nonsense. I think, well, let me put it this way. The reason that I showed that section in the intro is because that is Vampire Survivors and the appeal of Vampire Survivors in a nutshell. If you look at that and you think that that looks entertaining, then this is probably the game for you. If not, then it's not for everybody. Again, it is quite the shallow experience, but quite the satisfying and quite the fun experience, in my opinion. There's actually another aspect that I hadn't talked about yet, and that was that this game is actually coded in HTML5, which is kind of funny. And that means, well, not that that necessarily means, however, you can actually play the demo version for free on itch.io, and it runs right in your browser. But the Steam version is the one that has all the content. As I'm looking at it right now, the itch.io version is not getting updated anymore, so it has 7 characters, 22 weapons, 10 pickups, etc. Whereas the Steam version currently has, I don't even know, but a lot more than that. We'll look at the collectibles afterwards. Also, I guess this is the part from the intro. It's just as chaotic as when I first saw it a couple minutes ago. Beautiful. Another thing that's kind of funny is I mentioned that you can play this game with a variety of input options. Apparently touchscreen is one of them. Mouse, keyboard, controller, and touchscreen. So the way the controls work, again, you're basically only moving your character. There are a select few weapons that will sort of more actively fire. However, the buttons you're using are still just the arrow keys. So that means you can use actually WASD, you can use the arrow keys, you can click and move the mouse around to move, or what I've found is the most comfortable way, and how I'm actually playing it here, is with a controller. it's totally playable one-handed, so you can just kind of hold the controller in one hand and move the stick or the D-pad or whatever, and you'll be good to go. And I just found that's a little bit easier on the wrist than sitting over a keyboard and constantly tapping directional keys, but to each their own. Alright, as soon as we hit 30 minutes, we're going to get Grim Reapers, so let's buckle down, or buckle up, or buckle something. I'm not really sure where I was going with that. And here we go. Now I have a permanent upgrade that lets me revive one time, so we'll do that, and then get instantly killed again. Cool. Alright, well, not a bad run. That's a lot of gold. You can get quite a bit of gold in a single run, but somewhere between 5 and 10,000 is usually normal, so 15 is quite good. So that was a run of Vampire Survivors. Let's take a look at some of the power-ups that you can get. These are all permanent upgrades, and some of them correspond to things that you can find in the level, some of them not. What's kind of interesting about these as well is that you can actually refund the power-ups and get all of your gold back. So if you pick something that you don't like, you can easily go back and redo that choice. These are all the different unlockables, which are also achievements. Some of them are basic, like, oh, get this character to this level in a single run, or, you know, pick up this item from this map. But some of them are a little bit more obscure. None of them are super complicated or difficult to get. All right, so we're going to quickly just check out one more character, one more level, and grab all different items. I think, yeah, that'll work. And we'll do this one. And I believe hyper mode just makes the enemies more difficult, but gets you more gold. These randomizo things, don't worry about it. You unlock them and they give you, you know, like I mentioned, I think, some multipliers or mutations, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, that'll work. So we're not going to play through this whole match. We'll maybe go to around 10 minutes or so. And again, I'll just pick all different items that I didn't pick last time. You get sort of an idea for the variety of different power-ups that you can get. Yeah, why not? It is funny, though, like, I must admit, my first impression of this game was quite negative, because, again, it looks like, graphically, it looks like Game Maker games that I made when I was in high school. Which I think I mentioned before, it might be kind of fun to do a video on, like, the really cringy Game Maker games that I made back in high school, but we'll talk about that at a later date. I don't think I want any of these. This guy's like a bonus merchant that you can find sometimes. Again, this is all content that you can explore if you decide to pick up the game for yourself. I'm not doing an in-depth look, an in-depth video essay, that kind of thing. The Rune Tracer item, which bounces off of walls, is quite good for the more closed-off levels. And the upgraded version of it, which we will likely not get to see, actually like explodes on contact as well, so it gets pretty insane. I mean, that's sort of the theme, right? Is any weapon that gets its evolved form gets pretty insane. And if you can manage to stack like 3 or 4 evolved forms together, then yeah. Be the bullet hell, as they say. You will notice, though, I mean, this is actually a harder level. The enemies are a little bit harder. If I had no upgrades, it would be taking multiple hits to kill these enemies. But even though I have the upgrades, like, I'm still pretty much in no danger here. So, yes, I do have upgrades, and maybe that's to be expected, but again, it's not a very difficult game. But it might sound weird coming from somebody who's, like, an enormous Souls player, but I don't think difficulty is really the most important part of the game. A challenge can be fun, but I think the other aspects are more important. I know, again, it sounds weird from someone who loves Souls so much. But that's not why I love Souls either, is the difficulty. I mean, yeah, the difficulty makes it fun, but it's really all the other aspects that are more important. So there's actually a pretty cool item that, again, I don't think we're going to get, but you'll notice I got this bird that circles around and shoots projectiles. There's actually a second bird that circles the opposite direction and shoots projectiles. You can combine the two of those into like a super bird. A surfing bird. Not exactly. But then it does, you know, like all the other evolved weapons, it just does crazy damage, crazy AoE, and all that nonsense. But again, the goal here is just to give you sort of an overview, show you a little bit of what the game has to offer, and then you can decide for yourself if you want to check it out. Yeah, I pretty much always go for Duplicator. It's like one of the best items in the whole game, easily. So there are some secrets, like I mentioned, that you can find in the levels. I don't think we're going to do any of them here, but if we were to walk far enough, although it looks like the level is just an infinite loop, it sort of is and it sort of isn't. You can access a map by going to the pause menu, and it'll show you, oh, if you walk like a really long distance in this direction, you'll find a certain item. However, oftentimes those items are guarded by either groups of tough enemies or one really tough enemy that you have to defeat, or that will chase you down if you grab the item, that sort of thing. So it's sort of like a... It's not really a gamble, but it's more of like a choice if you think it's worth it for your particular build to go grab these items. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But sometimes, again, it is characters that you can unlock. It just depends on the level and how much stuff you've grabbed in the past. In fact, I'm pretty sure that at this point, having skipped a couple updates, there are mechanics and secrets that I have no idea even exist or how they work. Which I suppose would make the wiki useful, but we're just here to record a relatively short video, right? What is funny is if you decide to play not on the hurry mode, or like the double speed mode, the game does tend to start off a little bit slow. And so you'll be running around, like, feel like you're not facing that many enemies for the first maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes. That's why I like the hurry mode, because it really speeds you up quite a bit. This was actually a thing that I had an issue with that later got patched, because I assume other people had this issue as well. The original hurry mode from a few updates ago just ran you for 15 minutes, just like this one does. However, the clock only ticked to 15 minutes, and the enemies would not come out as frequently. So you would actually get less experience, less gold, and not get the full, well, experience, essentially, of doing a long run. So now that seems to have changed. And it seems like I'm, well, on the last one, I hit around a level 100 with my character by the end of the run, which is about where I normally was, I think, on a 30-minute run. So again, it's always a great sign when the dev will say, oh, okay, that sounds like good feedback, and change stuff. Of course, there's always a balance. You don't want the dev to change the nature of the game, but on stuff like that, I think it's definitely worth it. Oh, we've hit 10 minutes, haven't we? Let's see if I can kill myself. It might actually be kind of hard. Alright, I can probably kill myself on this harpy. Yeah. Although I do have the revive. Okay. I don't think I'm going to be able to kill myself on the scrub enemies, so let's go look for another boss, I guess. Yeah, I've become way too powerful already. Any bosses anywhere? Oh, that might work. No? You guys? Okay, I don't want to go for another 30 minutes, so if I can't kill myself here. Monetization, Susan, please don't take that out of context. Yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and quit. All right. Well, everybody, that was Vampire Survivors. I hope you enjoyed this little quick look. I think this is well worth your time. It's $3, which is an insane value for something with this much content. If the overall look of the gameplay appeals to you, I think you will enjoy it. At any rate, you can go play the demo for free on itch.io, which I will link in the video description. Otherwise, I want to thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. I'll see you on the next one, and until then, God bless.